All right, back here on Southbound Sports. My guest again is Jeffrey Meyer, and we are talking the NFL free agency season. The last couple of weeks we got into a little bit of the NFL Combine, and time's ticking now for franchises to kind of fill their holes. And the big one, being a Pittsburgh guy, Jeffrey, what do you think about the Antonio Brown signing by the Steelers?
You know, I'm very excited about the Steelers signing Antonio Brown. I was a little nervous after everything that happened after the Kansas City game this year, you know, the locker room distractions, the Facebook Live video and stuff. But honestly, the Steelers needed to make this move. You know, I think it's kind of interesting, though, that I saw something on Twitter. Colin Cowherd was going off saying the Steelers made a bad decision, essentially paying him too much money, that for those 3 years beginning of the contract, he's making $18 million a year. And he was alluding to the fact that the Patriots' entire receiver core is being paid $19 million a year, all of them together. So, you know, I mean, that's something like, that's just how the Patriots work. When you have the best receiver in the NFL for the Steelers, I feel like you have to pay him because someone else in the league is going to fork out the money and pay him. And with, you know, Big Ben coming back, you have Le'Veon Bell getting the franchise tag. You're bringing the killer bees back, and I feel like that's what the offense needs. Now, the defense, you know, needs to hopefully pick up some draft picks in the upcoming draft. But as far as the offense is concerned, you need to bring AB back. Martavis Bryant's going to be playing this year. I think the Steelers have everything on offense they need for this upcoming season.
I can see where Cowherd's coming from. But from an age perspective, the Steelers, they have a lot of guys that aren't going to be around much longer. So they kind of had to go with this. And I think that's why they did front load it, because they're not going to have money. I mean, there's free agents out there, but they're kind of like the ones that don't make a team. Like, I don't know if there's too many like big D linemen or like in the trenches that are going to get you able to turn around or the protection that Ben needs. So they're going to have to rely on the draft for that. Why not spend the extra cash here and keep Brown around? My only thing is I like how the Steelers structured it, because my thing with Brown is he's small. So a couple shots could take him out and then he's down. So I like how they kind of structured everything up front. They know what they're getting right now. I bet this is a pitch to Ben, telling him like, hey, don't retire. We're going to get you the weapons. You're going to have them 1 more year, 2 more years, however long you can make it. And now they're set out here to do some damage. I don't know what their cap situation is, but it does seem, as I'm doing like some payroll research, it does seem that most teams like ebb and flow based on the age of their roster. And the Steelers have a pretty old core. And it's looking like they're getting ready here to make one last push, probably either this year or next year if they can keep Ben. Maybe 2 good years left before they're going to have to do some type of turnover. And so by structuring his contract like this, it drops down. It's going to give them some more room to try to attract some more free agents in a few years to help build it, keep it going. But I like the contract. I don't know about making him the highest paid receiver. To me, that seems like you should have a monster, like a Calvin Johnson type, someone who's big and physically imposing. But Steelers have to do something because they were close this year to making it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point there. You know, if all their time's ticking, especially with Ben, like you said, he has 2 solid years, I believe, so they want to win now. And that's something that's something I'm sure Ben's very interested in. And like you mentioned, the Steelers actually, it's surprising. The offensive line was pretty good this year. You know, Pouncey came back. It was the first time, and I'd say probably like the last 10 years that you could count on the offensive line. Ben didn't really get sacked much this year compared to other years. You know, Ben's been notorious over the years for taking too many sacks, but this year they kept him upright. I think this is a very big step in the offense. And you make a very interesting point about, you know, Brown being a small receiver. He's not that prototypical receiver. And I actually agree with that. You know, growing up, you know, we had Randy Moss and other receivers like that, you know, Terrell Owens, Chad Johnson, others, you know, the tall prototypical receivers. And Brown really isn't that kind of receiver. But at the end of the day, when you get the ball in Brown's hands, he makes plays. The yards after the catch with Brown is basically what makes him one of the best receivers in the league. And for the next couple years, I think he's still going to have that explosiveness and that big play capability. So I think they made the right decision, locking him down, trying to make a Super Bowl run in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and that's why I said that it's good the way they structured it, because like you said, he's explosive now. He can make the big play. In a few years, if that starts to dwindle, they need the extra space to go ahead and make a move and have him move to that second or third slot type receiver. And moving on to another team. So basically, Brown's putting the Steelers in a position here where they're trying to spend now to win. The Redskins made a crazy move. They put the franchise tag on Kirk Cousins, which to me is a similar move. They're not invested in him, so it's kind of like they're putting 1 year on him, and I don't think he can win a Super Bowl, let alone even like an NFC East championship. So it's very weird that they would go ahead and either not sign him or try to do some type of move. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at that today, and I don't know if the Redskins are desperate and they don't really know what the future holds for them, because I like Kirk Cousins, honestly. I thought he was good coming out of Michigan State, but I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback, and I feel like the Redskins have the same opinion. They aren't really sure what they're going to do with him yet, so they slapped the franchise tag on him kind of as like a desperation move, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see, especially in that division. I don't think, like you said, Kirk Cousins can, beat the Cowboys, beat the Giants. I don't even think they can really compete with the Eagles. The Eagles showed this year that, maybe they're a couple years away from making a run in that division. But at the same token, I also saw something about maybe this was a move to try to bring in Tony Romo to the Redskins. I don't really know how truthful that is, but I saw that on Twitter. What's your thoughts on that? Maybe like a Tony Romo move to?
Well, it would have to be, because I'm sitting here thinking I'm a huge college football fan, and the other option would be to bring in a guy. Maybe you can draft him. You think you can get maybe the next Dak Prescott, but you're thinking I'll franchise tag Kirk Cousins, get some competition behind him. It reminds me something, the 49ers, I don't know if they put the franchise tag on Alex Smith back in the day, but the same year when he got hurt and Colin Kaepernick was there, they had a similar dynamic. Bring in another young guy, but you have 1 year here when you're going to evaluate, okay, you're going to be the franchise tag guy, we're going to bring in someone else, show us why we should keep you, sign you to that long-term deal. Tony Romo adds an interesting dynamic, but again, is he that much better than Kirk Cousins? I mean, he just lost his team, and they did much better without him. So I've never been high on Tony Romo. A lot of people are. Until you have, I rely more on like winners. Some quarterbacks, like you have confidence in that they're going to go ahead and win. Some people have it. It's indescribable. As a stats guy, I know that really doesn't stick to my MO. I can't like point to some stats and say like this is why he's a winner. But like I look at Tom Brady, he's a winner. Tony Romo just doesn't have it. I mean, he couldn't even catch that extra point from a few years back, and that sticks in my mind. Like that's a play that a backup punter makes, or the punter, or like a backup kicker. Like that's who normally holds that. And to me, that's not like a botched, like a fumble or something, like a hard hit. It just seems like there's no point. Tony Romo's never going to be a top tier quarterback. I could probably name hundreds of like middling NFL quarterbacks that were in the league that he's probably around the same plane as, that most people now wouldn't even remember.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. Any team going for Tony Romo, I mean, you're going to get a lot of press from it, but is it really going to be making your team any better? I don't know. But
yeah.
Go ahead.
Honestly, I have a lot of mixed opinions on this. So growing up, I really wasn't, the biggest Tony Romo fan, but I saw something very interesting 2 weeks ago. Tony Romo, I believe, is in the top 5 passer rating of all time, and he's the only quarterback in that top 5 that hasn't won a Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, you know, throughout his career, he's put up yards, he's made plays. But at the same time, though, he's also thrown those horrible picks, in the fourth quarter. But I don't know the exact stat on it, but I know Tony Romo does have a lot of fourth quarter overtime comeback wins. He's pretty high on that list. So if you're a team that doesn't really have much to lose, why don't you bring a guy in with Tony Romo? He's going to win games. But I would definitely disagree with your statement, with this season that the Cowboys did better without him. Because if you look at that offensive line that the Cowboys have, it's probably the best in the entire league. And they actually just restructured a couple of deals. So they have their center, one of their guards, and their tackle all coming back. They signed them to, a contract extension. And you had, Ezekiel Elliott this year. He really brought a different dynamic to the table. If you factor all that in, you have Tony Romo, who's healthy. I think he does just as good as Dak Prescott does, honestly. But I think the Cowboys made the right decision for the future in keeping Dak Prescott in. But if things, shake out a little differently, I think Tony Romo does just as well, if not better, than Dak Prescott in that offense. Because unlike, other years, he had a legit running game, a running game that could break the game open for him. I mean, if you look at the Steelers game last year against the Cowboys, Ezekiel Elliott putting the nail in the coffin there. And if you add, Tony Romo to that mix, I think it's a similar outcome.
Well, I'll say this. I feel like it's a similar situation. I already brought it up earlier with like the Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick dynamic, where you have a quarterback who's solid. And when Harbaugh got to the 49ers, he turned Alex Smith into basically a quarterback rating machine, which is a stat that you brought up with Tony Romo. Because the offense, he's great at just making good reads, checking down, but is he going to make a play to win the game? And then you go ahead and you bring in someone who's more dynamic, someone who has speed, someone who can help spread it out. Yeah, they have a great line, but they've had a pretty good line for the past couple of years. They haven't had a great running back, but you're still going to have an offense where whenever you don't have that dynamic quarterback to help spread it out and get defenders chasing, they have to contain a running quarterback. They're not going to be able to stack the box, even if they want to. And then you also have like Des Bryant, some of the other guys who's Romo's been thrown to for a while, Jason Witten. He's had weapons. He just doesn't have it. And in a league, I don't want to say he's like a dinosaur type quarterback, but whenever you get out there, those quarterbacks besides Tom Brady really don't win. Even Big Ben can move a little bit more than Romo at his size. He can get outside the pocket. He can make some moves. He's not afraid to take a few hits. Romo, he can't take hits. He gets hurt when he does. And that's a knock on him, and that just might be his luck. But I think about that like with Alex Smith. I think that's what his ceiling is going to be. He might be able to get a division win, depending on if he lands on a solid team. But he needs a quarterback coach or even just a head coach like Andy Reid that's going to run like that West Coast offense, because Tony Romo is going to make the smart reads, and so he needs to have the ball. They need to play ball contain. Can the Chiefs win a Super Bowl with that? I don't know. It depends. Like, I don't know, because that's something that's kind of gone the wayside in the league. Teams just don't run that type of offense. Even the Patriots are always throwing wrinkles. They couldn't even do it with their West Coast offense. They were throwing all kind of trick plays to try to get their offense moving until the Falcons just tanked in the Super Bowl. So that's what Tony Romo would be up against. And I just don't see it from quarterback. But again, I don't see any good quarterbacks in college coming out. Like anyone that's going to be a wow, knock your socks off. There's some big guys. I mean, there's some names that were going out, but I don't know. We'll have to see in a few weeks. I'll dig into some more of the draft combine people and see who rises to the top. But at this time every year, by now, we already have someone who's a quarterback that everyone's talking about, and we don't have it this year.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're right. This year in the upcoming draft, we don't really have that standout quarterback that's going to be a franchise quarterback. And that's why I think a lot of teams are going to be interested in Tony Romo. The one team I know everyone's really hot on now is Romo to Denver. That's one that, really does make sense to me. You have that defense in Denver. If you can add a quarterback to that, to that team, they could make a run in the AFC. 'Cause right now in the AFC, you essentially have the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Chiefs. And I guess the Texans, if you consider their defense, but as a whole, I'd say the AFC is a little unmatched. I don't want to say unmatched, but the NFC is definitely a better conference overall. So if you're the Broncos, I feel like Tony Romo would be a decent mix, for that team.
Oh, Tony Romo would be perfect there because he fits the mold that I just said. They need a quarterback who can just make smart reads. They basically won it with Peyton Manning on a Jello arm. He got caught having HGH delivered to his house, which the NFL didn't care about. They're just like, oh, that's your wife's HGH? Like, that's a believable story. I don't know how many guys have girlfriends that just are like, I think I'm going to start taking HGH. And you would be like, oh, okay, that sounds normal. So, but apparently the NFL didn't care. And as soon as that happened, then you noticed that his arm just wasn't there. Because NFL probably told him backdoors, like, hey, you can't be taking HGH. We're going to start testing you. Or they did start testing him, and he just came, like, he never came up on him. But his arm was completely rubber that year. And that defense basically just won him that Super Bowl. And that's all the Broncos need. It just reminds me of, like, Trent Dilfer when he was with the Ravens. Make smart reads. You don't have all the physical skills. That's not your fault. Sometimes you're just born into having that stuff. And so make the reads, do what you can do best, lead the team, set a good example. Don't have guys getting arrested. Take the guys out. It's notorious that Peyton Manning would take his line out, buy them drinks, like have a good time. He's a great guy off the field with teammates. So that's what they need. And if Tony Romo's going to do that, I don't know if he has that same type of personality, because some of the rumblings out of the Cowboys camp is that he wasn't a real players guy. He was going out on vacation with like the owner, Jerry Jones, the coach, and things like that. So there you have some of that. Is it going to work? I don't know, but any defensive built team that gets him has a chance of winning the Super Bowl just based off his experience. A veteran quarterback, you can never count out a veteran quarterback. If you're in the league this long and getting this much attention as a free agent when you're well in your 30s, then you're doing something right.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, guys like Jason Witten, like he might not have been, exactly, a player's quarterback, taking people out, stuff like that. But he's respected by people like Jason Witten for having good locker room presence. And the Broncos need a quarterback that could bring that locker room presence, like you said, make all the throws that you need to, be smart with the football, let your defense win a game. That sounds like Tony Romo would be a great fit. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, I think it's good. And again, it comes down to defense. And so we'll swing on the other side of things here. The Jets, they cut Darrelle Revis. So he got cut. And then on the defensive line, so did Mario Williams a few weeks back. I think we tweeted that out. So like some big names in the past getting cut. And I don't know what it is, a contract deal or what. But Revis, he has to be a good deal because I'm pretty sure the Jets are still going to pay him. So someone's going to be able to get him cheap.
Yeah, and that's honestly, I think Revis is going to be a steal for someone this year because at the end of the day, he's one of the best corners ever. I know a knock on Revis last year that he came into the season not prepared like he has been in the past, and honestly, it showed on the field. He looked a little slow. He wasn't making the plays that you're accustomed to him, seeing him make. But I think this, he's the type of person and player, who's going to take this as a wake-up call. He's going to, work out in the offseason, prepare himself. And I think he's got, a couple more good years in him. And like you said, I'm pretty sure the Jets are obligated to pay some of his contract because of the way, this turned out. And I think he might be a steal for a team.
Well, I look at it like this, too. I know he had some off-field issues, but this is where you start to get in the shady side of things. He hasn't been himself recently. Might be due to age. He's getting into street fights. Yeah. This could be something where like CTE comes in. And I know they don't have the scans yet for the league, but the league should really try to like set things down. So I don't think they're going to like kind of push him out of the league, because what if he goes in and then says like, hey, I want to get tested on like a more cynical side of things. Like he might want to push the issue. So I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL just lets him go ahead, Jets pay him, and then he gets a contract with someone. And then it's kind of low key, even though he's been having some off the field issues with his like not preparing for the season and things. But I think he'd be a great nickel cornerback now. And I think that's where, look out if he ends back up in New England, because this is the type of move that they would do. He gets cut. Last time he was up there, they won a Super Bowl. He knows the scheme. Bill Belichick would go ahead, throw him right back in. He'd wheel him in. They have a lot of like veteran guys like Tom Brady who can make sure that he's on the right track. So that's where I'd be looking for him to go. And I don't know if they have the space or if they would even want him. But that's the one where other teams in the leagues might just sign him to keep him out of there.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting, thought, because I actually didn't consider that. But you're right. He already knows the defense. He knows the Patriot way, essentially. And if there's anyone that's going to motivate him to, prepare for the season, it's going to be Tom Brady and the Patriots and Bill Belichick. So that would actually be, move him inside, like, to the nickel, something like that. That would be a great fit, honestly. But the one thing I also want to get into tonight is AP got released. He's going to be a free agent. And honestly, I was thinking about it. I think the Patriots would be the best look for AP. I jotted down some teams that AP might go to, but I was thinking about this. The last time a running back around his age became a free agent that was, had a lot of rushing yards, was well-respected running back, was Corey Dillon. The Patriots brought in Corey Dillon at age 30 and ended up helping them win a Super Bowl. Now, I know the Patriots have LeGarrette Blount, but I'm pretty sure that Blount's going to be a free agent this year too. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, but LeGarrette Blount, maybe, the Patriots had enough of him. I don't know. I mean, he did really well this season, so you'd think that they'd want to bring him back. But when you can snag someone like AP who would fit, the Patriots, I feel like perfectly, I think that's something they got to consider. And especially with AP leaving the Vikings, you might be able to get him at a reasonable deal, especially if he wants to win a Super Bowl, because in his career, he's pretty much done everything, you'd want to as a running back except win a Super Bowl. So I feel like that's something, the Patriots would have to consider, and AP maybe consider taking a pay cut to go to the Patriots.
Well, I think you could be onto something just because of the fact they're running out of years with Tom Brady. I mean, he looked like he could play for a few more years, but why not load him up with extra weapons and take a few chances? Right now, he already has however many Super Bowls. He can really cement his legacy if he can get them there 2 or 3 more years. And that's why the same thing I was leaning, get Revis back. Why not? Why not throw some of these great players who are smart? They know the game. They're veterans. They were basically the top players. So if they would bring him in, that is a move that they would make. And then that's when it comes down to, you're going to see some other teams overpay for these guys to keep them out of New England. Or like, I could see Revis going back to Pittsburgh. He played college there. And I mean, that's where he was when he got arrested. So maybe not the best idea for him, but go ahead, get on a team, a veteran team that's going to go ahead and have a chance to win another Super Bowl. That's what they're going to get. And that's when it comes down to, does AP want to win a Super Bowl, or does he just want to get paid? Because it could be his last paycheck.
Yeah, that's true. And with players, it's hard to know exactly if they want that paycheck or they want a Super Bowl. Because I'm telling you what, if AP goes to the Patriots, he takes a pay cut, I think the Patriots are easily the favorite for next year. When you consider the passing game the Patriots have in Tom Brady, and you add AP, who, I mean, the way he's played on the field over the years is, it speaks for itself. I know the last couple of years he's got banged up and hasn't played as much as he should, but that's a decent risk to take. If AP can play close to his caliber, I feel like you got to take a risk on that.
Yeah, and with a lot of like running backs, I mean, he's flexible enough that he can do it. He can be, I don't know if he can still be an all-down back, but he's good enough that he can be a third down back out of the backfield. Another place would be him maybe to Arizona to spell David Johnson, which would be a hell of a tandem.
Yeah.
If they work something like that out, because you think David Johnson's coming back off that knee injury, and now you have AP, another big name. They might be able to swing for cheap, which could also be who isn't Jamal Charles? Isn't he a free agent too?
Yeah.
So that's another big name that could fall into either of those slots. I'm not sure. I mean, whenever you're just trying to fill in a veteran back to be a second or third team running back to come in and do some option, I just don't see a team taking Peterson as number one. But like you said, you already have Blunt. Even if it's only for one more year, you can go ahead and platoon, give some cuts, someone that can take it to the house. I mean, AP showed great speed this year. I mean, he still has it.
Yeah. And another reason why I just, add to the Patriots thing, you also have Dion Lewis and James White, who can be that third down back. So if you don't want AP on the field all game, you don't need it. Like you said, the platoon approach. But I actually didn't even really consider the Cardinals. I mean, that'd be something to have those two in the backfield together. And David Johnson, I mean, I'm pretty sure that their head coach said that he could start as a slot receiver for them. So he's going to be utilized on third down. So AP could just play first, second down. Doesn't even have to worry about third down.
Well, I had David Johnson on my fantasy team, so I watched a lot of his games, and it was ridiculous the amount of use he got compared to anyone else. He was out there. Like if they were going to go empty, he was the slot receiver, and he was the first look on a lot of routes this year. And I was very surprised by that because you have Larry Fitzgerald out there. They would spread him out. They were throwing him screens. They were throwing him everything. His touch use was crazy, and it can't last that long. So now I'm thinking that they're going to go ahead and they're going to tell him like, hey, great, we couldn't get it done, but we need you for a few more years. You got hurt last year. So let's go ahead and bring in another veteran, you that can take some first back or some number one running back handoffs and get AP in there. That's his strength. And then still bring him in for a flexible third down option and a lot of the pass receiving stuff. He's basically like an all-man, Iron Man third down back that can do it all. And there's not really a lot of them. Like you said, maybe James White would be the other one from his use in the Super Bowl. He was able to basically lead them in receiving and take the handoff whenever they needed to.
Yeah.
But those would be the ones that if they wanted to win, I don't know if the Cardinals are set up as good, definitely not as good as the Patriots. But even the long term, their defense has kind of fallen off in recent years. But they still have some big pieces. And I don't know, some of the other teams I think would just be risky for them because if you're a veteran back, you want another running back that you can either split with, like LeGarrette Blount, or that you can spell, like David Johnson, and let him take the most of the attention away from the defense. And then you could sneak in and make some big plays yourself.
Yeah. And just to add, possible places that AP and Charles could go, when I was thinking about it, the Bengals, Giants, Packers, Texans, and the Raiders. I feel like those are all, those 5 teams are locations where I could see them both going. At the end of the day, I feel like the Texans are very close to being a really good team. They remind me of the Broncos a couple years ago. They have the best defense in football. So I feel like, I don't know what it is, but I honestly feel like Charles would be a good look there. It's within the same, the conference, and I think the Texans need a running back. I don't know what you think about that, Charles, maybe to the Texans or the Raiders, because at the end of the day, even the Raiders, you have Derek Carr, you have Amari Cooper, you have Michael Crabtree. I mean, that's a pretty solid offense, and the Raiders have a pretty good defense too. They were on the cusp last year to making the playoffs and making a run. If Carr doesn't go down, the Raiders are a threat in the AFC. If you could add an AP or a Charles to the Raiders, that might be a team that could contend this year.
Yeah, that is another. It's similar. It fits the same vein that I was saying, where you have an established offense, you have a good running back that can catch out of the backfield. He can do a lot of things, and then you're going to come in as another big name just to give him a break and keep the defense honest. To let your receivers like Crabtree and Cooper stay open, because then they have to respect your third down back or even your backup running back. They can't just forget all about it whenever you're going down and about.
And also, think about the Bengals too. The last couple years, they've been knocking on the doorstep with the Steelers, and the Ravens. If you could add, running back like AP or Charles to that mix, you already have Giovanni Bernard, who can catch out of the backfield, can be a third down back. I mean, that's a pretty deadly combo, even for for the Bengals there.
Well, the Bengals, their problem has always been the locker room and the off the field issues, and not having that winning edge. So I don't know if either of them would go there just for that reason, because there are a lot better places they can go out there. And even like some of the other situations that are going to give you an even better chance just to win, the Bengals have it there, but you have to look and even think back to that meltdown a few years ago against the Steelers and just think like, hey, there has to be somewhere else that people are expected to win. And at this point in their careers, that's probably where they want to go. They want to go to a winner, I would say. Or if they're worried about just getting paid, I still don't think the Bengals are going to do that either. So I'd be very surprised if either of them went there. The other one, I don't know. Looking at the list of teams that could use a running back, I actually don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they just went to a random team, though. Like, end up in, with the Titans or something crazy, where it's like, what are you doing? But they just want that last paycheck. Because with so much uncertainty in the league now, it's hard to tell what players are going for. And with the after-career issues that a lot of players have, if you winning a championship is such a crapshoot if you can't land with the Patriots. So let's say if the Patriots can't sign both, so like the second one, whoever gets left out, if they're trying to go that route, I mean, at that point, maybe just take the money.
Yeah.
It might be the better option.
Yeah, and, I'm throwing a lot of teams out here, but also another place, the Seahawks need a running back. Their running back last year, hurt his ankle. He's coming off an injury too. And I could see either team, wanting, I keep, harping on this, but at the end of the day, I feel like when you're an athlete, you want to win championships. So if I'm either of these two players, the first thing I'm going to do is determine what teams can win, where I can go and win a championship, and then maybe make a second list where I can go and make, a lot of money. And that's why I think I keep seeing the Buccaneers come up. And I don't know why I keep seeing the Buccaneers come up as a possible location, because they have Doug Martin there, in Tampa. It doesn't really make sense to me why Charles would want to go to the Buccaneers, but for some reason online I keep seeing that as a possible location for him.
Yeah, well, you named a lot of the teams that are going to be in the playoffs, like the Packers, the Raiders, even the Chiefs. So a lot of those you have an option. You can go there, be the backup guy. Tampa Bay is intriguing because they have a lot of young players. So he could really make his mark there. They have the Jameis Winston. Their running back, Doug Martin, he actually was hurt a few years ago. So he's not even the same back. He might even been hurt this year. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, so if he's getting injured and you just need another vet, he can come in, be a leader. He's not had any problems in the league that I'm aware of. So he's going to be a good locker room guy. And it might just be a culture fit. Yeah. You go to a team where a lot of the players are hungry. Because whenever you go, you're a free agent, you're going to be meeting with the players. You're going to be meeting with the coach and trying to get like what direction they're going with. So sometimes it's a feel thing, and I think that's why the Bucs are coming up. They're a young, hungry team. They play in basically what's turning into a stacked NFC South because you have the Saints. They were in the Super Bowl a few years ago. Panthers just in the Super Bowl. Falcons just in the Super Bowl. And now Tampa Bay. They're going to make their mark on it, and that's going to be a highly competitive division. So whatever team comes out of there is going to be highly battle-tested. So I could see them wanting to go there just because they can put their mark on a franchise. And that's a franchise where if he might be able to get a long contract just for that veteran leadership at a key position on offense.
Yeah. And like you said, you have Jameis Winston, young quarterback who's done fairly well so far. And then you have Mike Evans, a receiver. He's been playing really well. So, I mean, that could be, another addition to that offense to maybe push them over the hump and, compete with what you just said. The Falcons were in the Super Bowl last year or, this year, and a couple years ago, the Panthers. So if you can add a running back to that team, they might be able to get over that hump and win some close divisional games there.
Yeah, and it's going to be tough. And like I said, it comes down to leadership too. Jameis, he's had a questionable past. So you need someone, a veteran guy that can come in and provide that leadership skills, kind of guide him. And so the team might be willing to pay more because they can get an offensive guy for him to kind of lean on and still lead, learn from the league a little bit, and get that stuff going. So that's why I kind of think that they might be in play. But again, it comes down to there are other teams out there that are better suited to win. Right now, the Buccaneers are still a little bit young.
Well, I know we brought up Antonio Brown earlier. So there's another receiver now, Alshon Jeffrey for the Bears. Apparently he's going in the free agent market as well. As a Steeler fan, I was very concerned that Alshon Jeffrey was going to set the market for Antonio Brown. And I don't think the Steelers wanted to let that happen. So they signed Brown, and then Alshon Jeffrey got released. So I'm very curious if the Bears are just going to try to, start from the ground up and rebuild that entire team. They still have Jay Cutler, which I don't know if they're going to keep him long term. But what do you think about the Bears going forward?
The Bears should have gutted their team a few years ago. And so they got to the Super Bowl, and they had a great defense. And they never made that push to get back. And it was a Super Bowl that I think Peyton Manning ended up winning when the Bears should have beat him. And so you were so close, and you let that, and that was when Peyton Manning was right in the prime of his choke. He choked every year, and the Bears had a much better defense, and I think it was a slugfest if I remember the game correctly. And after that, the Bears, they had another few runs, and right after that, they should have made a push to rebuild their defense because it was aging. And instead, they went and signed Jay Cutler, and now they've been trying to backfill. It's kind of like if your boat's sinking and you're just shoveling out water. That's kind of what the Bears are doing, and they're kind of doing it in a division where you can be competitive because as much as high as people are on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers all the time, the division itself is not really that tough. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings, they're perennially an 8-8 team, 9-7. If AP is on his way out, is that going to be a real competition? So I think the Bears get false hope, seeing the Lions and the Vikings in that division, and then they see Aaron Rodgers. They're probably like, well, if we can beat the Packers, if we can split with the Packers each year, there's a good chance we can go to the playoffs, even as a wild card. And so I think that's given the Bears false hope, where they're like, well, we'll just sign a few key players, or we'll let some go and just try to backfill. But they've been in the spiral now for a while, where they either need to decide they can tank a year, or try to do picks, or try to trade some guys. I don't know what they're really going to be able to do. I mean, maybe try to get some extra free agency money under the salary cap by letting Jeffrey go. But letting him go free agent style, not a good move by them. But maybe they're finally getting their well-deserved rebuild.
I'm just going to continue with with you went there. I think you're right. I think this might be the point where they have to finally rebuild, because at the end of the day, who's Jay Cutler going to throw the ball to? Their defense wasn't very good last year. Who are they going to have at running back this year? I mean, they have a lot of questions, and this might be like you said, they were shoveling water out of the boat for so long while it was sinking, and I think this is the point where they realize they need to abandon ship.
Yeah, I think so, and I don't know what else they can do. Them and the Lions are kind of in a similar situation now, where they need to either make a push to try to compete, or they're going to be right where the Bears are in a few years, where they're backfilling. But we'll get into those. We've gone pretty good here on the podcast. There was one other story that I wanted to finish with real quick. Did you see that the NCAA suspended 5 Richmond baseball players for playing fantasy football.
Yeah, I did. And honestly, it blows my mind. Because like in the last podcast, we went a little bit about the NCAA, and it's unbelievable because they're going to, suspend these 5 baseball players for playing fantasy football when, number one, it's a completely different sport. If I remember correctly, Richmond's a D1 AA school, and honestly, it's really frustrates me because at the same time, they're going to suspend these players, but they're also going to tell you to fill out your March Madness brackets, which they know that everyone puts money on, trying to win money off it. And it's just really frustrating as a fan of college sports to see how NCAA picks and chooses its battles. Like, it makes no sense to go after 5 baseball players for Richmond. I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I'm pretty angry about this, honestly.
Well, as a baseball player on a lower tier, I'll tell you that it sucks for them because that was probably their full ride. So how are they going to pay for school now? So like you get the scholarship to play baseball. 2 of them were like their best players, so I'm assuming that they're on full rides. And you're there to play sports, and you make a mistake. Now, granted, they do talk about like, hey, you can't do like fantasy football, you can't do like polls, but they do make a concerted effort to go ahead and push those. It's on their website right now if you look at it. They have the March Madness brackets. They try to push it because they know they make money off it. And so I think I might have mentioned it last time with the Reggie Bush thing. I think schools that get hammered by the NCAA just need to stop. Just don't care. Just go ahead and put your trophies back, your banners back. USC should go and get a Heisman Trophy made and do another ceremony on the 10-year celebration or 20-year celebration, whatever one comes up next. Give it to Reggie Bush right in front of the NCAA. Hand out like printed things with all their wins back. Penn State should do the same thing. Theirs wasn't even sports related, really. I mean, it was a coach, and yeah, they let him back on campus for some other ungodly reason, which makes me mad. But still, like, if the NCAA is going to let people go to fake classes and then have a guy go on ESPN with the UNC thing, like 10 years ago, that guy was in school and he went on ESPN saying that his classes were fake and he couldn't get a job. But they're still investigating. And then you had Tunzel last year, video of him hitting a gas bong from his dad, and then his dad posting, or stepdad, and then he's posting pictures of texts from his phone to the athletic director about making house payments or whatever he was doing. So you have blatant evidence there, and they're still investigating. But then here, and I think this was like a self-report too, if I read it right. So like someone told University of Richmond that this happened. So it was probably like a teammate. Maybe they were mad that they lost money. We don't even know if it was for money. I don't know if that came out or not. But like, you're playing fantasy football, someone probably lost on the team or a coach heard it. They self-reported just to be safe. And then they get suspended, which is crazy to me. Like, hey, you're going to give some team slaps on the wrist. Who's been suspended from the Tar Heels yet? Coach?
Yeah.
Who's been suspended at Louisville whenever they had the hookers? That guy just had to leave. Their other coach. They like blame it on one other coach. Let him go somewhere. Some booster probably paid him off to take the fall. And then the other coach just pretends they don't know it happened. But then you have other ones. Like, I think Ole Miss went ahead and to try to get ahead of the NCAA investigation on their paying players and recruits and stuff, they went ahead and gave themselves a 1-year bowl ban, which is a joke because Ole Miss might not even make a bowl game this year. So how is that fair to the other teams? And I heard, speaking of like NCAA investigations, I heard that when Ole Miss did that, they went ahead and filed a report using some of their players that they signed that had like texts and offers that they were going to get money from Mississippi State. So they went ahead and turned in another university in their conference for cheating, which I haven't heard if the NCAA is going to do any investigation on them. It might just been a rumor through the grapevine whenever you hear talking to people that are like basically boosters. So you talk to other boosters at other schools, and then you hear like this happens all the time. And then you see this. It's just unfair to the kids. You can't promote it and then penalize it. It doesn't make sense. You have to make up your mind. Like, what do you want? I know they make all their money on basketball, So who cares about, like, they're probably thinking, who cares about these baseball players? It's not a big name school, but I guarantee they could find players from every school that plays fantasy sports. It's not that hard to make a fake account and a fake name.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Because, like, the all-powerful NCAA, I love how they pick and choose their battles. How is this important when you have so many, things going on in college sports right now, that you touched on before, like everything that's going on at Michigan State, different universities. Honestly, the one that I'm actually going to look into now that I remember I don't know if it was last year or the year before, was Syracuse and their basketball program. I can't even tell you what that, investigation was or exactly what transpired at Syracuse, but I remember it was a huge deal. And I haven't heard anything about that in at least a year.
So, yeah, I'm pretty sure they did nothing.
Yeah, so how does these things just go under the radar, and then you have 5 baseball players from a small school, which isn't even a baseball school, from my understanding, get suspended? Like you said, they're on full rise. It's probably the only can pay for it, their education, and you pick them as, a priority when you have all these problems throughout the country.
Yeah, I feel bad for the players. And like I said, there's not anything that says that they were even paying money to play. So if they were paying for free, I mean, I would say that they would have a case against the NCAA. I don't know if it specifically spells out in the contract, because you do sign a contract basically saying that, like, hey, we get your rights. So all the players that are like suing for like not getting any compensation, you basically sign that away whenever you sign your scholarship. They have a meeting, at least at our school, everyone came to the gym and they sat down and they had a guy like give a presentation, and then another guy came in and like explained the contract. And then there was like they broke into like little groups by teams, and then your coach was there, and then there was like an NCAA rep or something. And then we all had to sign a paper and then like do whatever. And then they were like, don't do this, this, this. And that was basically it. So like, I'm assuming that all schools, especially bigger schools, because I was D3, they had to have something similar where the players knew what not to do. But at this point, like I said, we don't know the facts. So if they could be using a fake name, so like, how are you going to pin these guys down? Anyone can make a free email and sign up for free fantasy football and try to win like the $1 million pot or whatever. Whenever you're advertising it on your own site, the NCAA, what's to say a player's not like, oh, well, I want a chance to win $1 million. Click, I'll fill out a bracket. I play baseball. Yeah. Like, what's the difference? What is the difference? I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it at all either. Like, I remember my freshman year at Pitt, we were specific that we weren't allowed to play fantasy football, but I can't remember if it was for money or we just weren't allowed to play in general. So these athletes probably like knew they weren't supposed to do it. But like you said, when you have, the NCAA broadcasting March Madness, wanting people to fill out brackets, and like you said, some kid from a small university makes a fake email, signs up for a chance to win $1 million. Are they going to suspend them? It's just silly. It's honestly, it almost seems like it's not even real. When you think about how insignificant it is and how the NCAA is going to seriously affect these student athletes' lives because of this, it honestly blows my mind.
And some of them, they bait you in. Because, like, I don't know if you've, like, looked at some of these before where they, like, offer you money. So, like, even the round-by-round ones. So you can sign up with a fake email, like a general email. Sign in. You get a lot of picks right. Then they'll bait you. They'll say, hey, you have a chance. Why don't you play this round for like $1 or $2? Because of your first round scores, you would have won this much. Here, we'll even give you a free $1. But if you want to put in, like, $5, then you have a chance to make this much more money, and we select this much more. So they kind of bait you. They give you like a little teaser, like, hey, we'll give you a free $1 to play. But, if you really want a chance, like, why not just put it in your own $1 too with this free one? And then they generate revenue that way because they only select a couple winners. And my thing with fantasy sports is who wins? Anytime I see a game or see an online survey where they say they select a winner, who knows if they actually even select a winner? So you have to be very careful when you're looking at these games online, because I know friends, like, they always tell me, like, hey, I started playing this. Like, if you think it's a good deal, it's always no. As a computer programmer, I'll tell you, they set it up so that you lose. don't play. And I mean, maybe they were just playing with their friends where it's something where it's controlled. You know the other 5 guys or whatever, 6 guys, and everyone's money's in, and then you're playing. But if you're playing these online games and these bracket challenges, they're basically just doing that to collect your information so that they can sell it to advertisers.
Yeah, because like you said, at the end of the day, I've never seen this person from Utah or something won $1 million or whatnot. Like, and at the end of the day, it's basically like gambling. The house always wins, so they're not gonna set up these bracket challenges just to lose money. They're doing it to, like you said, to get people's information, sell it, make money.
What?
To lose, I think.
Yeah, and I'll end it with this. Is totally off base, but the one example that I think I can find that people might be able to search is we'll go with esports, because this is the most recent story I've seen on it, where like I guess an esports team, 2 players from the team set up their own gambling site to try to win like gaming swag or something. And it was basically just like a scheme where they recorded videos of them winning. They posted it on YouTube and they ran the site. So they had all these other kids go in and try to play to try to win because they saw these other 2 guys win, but they didn't really win because they were the ones that made the site.
Yeah.
So like, just think if 2 guys can do that for like esports, who's to say someone's not doing that already for fantasy basketball or like a bracket challenge? Because you start to get emails around this time of year where it's like, hey, sign up to win $1 million, blah, blah. We just need your name, your address, and your phone number and this. And then they just take everyone who signed up and then they just turn it and they sell it to a data collection company. And then who knows, whoever pays out. I've never seen anyone step forward to say that they won this. And then you always see, too, because they'll be like, hey, it's the second round and we're out of winners. No one has a chance to win anymore. Like, oh, what a surprise. It happens every year.
Yeah.
So
you don't see anyone left for that, $1 million chance to win.
Well, another example that I just thought of, too, was I guess some player or some kid at Louisville at one of their basketball games hit like a half-court shot for like $38,000 for scholarship, and they took it away because he played like 9 minutes of high school basketball or something.
Right.
So that's another example where like, hey, they told him, I guess they asked him, like, did you play college basketball? And he's probably thinking, no, I rode the pine. But then they went back and were like, no, you played a little bit. So you don't get the money now. So it's like they're setting you up to lose. So anytime you see something that you think is a good deal online, please research it. Just copy and paste the link and put it in Google and see what comes up, because most of the time it's going to be a scam. I know that's not sports related or whatever, but wanted to, on a weird warning note to anyone who listens, especially if you're like a young kid, like don't get into any of these scams online. But that's bullshit for the players. I feel bad for them, because when you're promoting it on the NCAA site, fantasy sports and like random pick'ems and all kind of other gambling stuff, you need to relax the lines. Same with like the NHL. NHL should just go ahead and make gambling legal if they're going to have a team in Vegas. And that's what I'll end it on. That's my final statement. So go ahead. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being with me, Jeffrey. We'll be doing this again soon.